Wind? Okay. We are on the Chav Tes Amud Aleph, the second line, the first word on the line. B'Tisha B'Av Nigzer Alav Yiseinu Shelo Yikansu La'aretz. On Tisha B'Av, the Gzeira came down that we're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. Where did you get this from? The Chsivit says in the Pasuk, and there's a slight discrepancy between how Tosfos learns and how Rashi learns. We'll go with Rashi, and I'll just mention Agavar Tosfos.
When is this talking about? By the Chorban or lots of love?
The Gzeira came down that we were not going to go into that the Dor HaMidbar was not going to go into Eretz Yisrael. I'm not talking about the Chorban yet.
Oh.
The Chsivit says, we are on the third line of the Chav Tes Amud Aleph, and we're learning where do you know from that on Tisha B'Av the Gzeira came down that the Dor HaMidbar would not go in to Eretz Yisrael. So it says, it was Chodesh Nisan of the second year. So we're talking about Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the second year that the Yidden were in the Midbar. Who came HaMishkan? That was the day where the Mishkan got set up. During the first year after they came out of Mitzrayim, Moshe Rabbeinu put together, assembled the Mishkan. But in the second year, as we see from this pasuk, Hakim Moshe's Mishkan, the Mishkan was set up and it was put into practice, put into use. And another thing that happened that year was with Shalach Meraglim. Moshe Rabbeinu dispatched the Meraglim to check out Eretz Yisrael. The Chsivit says, it was in the second year, so now we're talking about Iyar of the second year, the month after the Mishkan was set up, the 20th day of Iyar, that was the day that the Anan moved from the Mishkan Edus, which symbolized that it's time to move. Pack your goods and we're going to start moving. The Chsivit says in the pasuk, they traveled from where they were 3 days. And Rashi tells us that we darshan not only Mehar Hashem, but Maher, fast. In other words, they were running away from Har Hashem, they were running away from Ruchnis. And in fact, at the end of these 3 days, Klal Yisrael already started getting into trouble. That day. So they're 20 in Iyar, 21, 22. So on day 22, on the 22nd day of Iyar, of the second year, that was the day Klal Yisrael turned away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And what did they do then? The riffraff amongst them, they complained that they didn't have meat. They complained that they didn't have it so good like that in Mitzrayim. They got everybody to complain and to become miserable because they didn't have meat. And after that, on that day, Hashem said, you want meat? I'll give you meat. So we're about 12 lines down, and we're learning how in Chodesh year of the second year, the Jews wanted meat. Hashem said, you want meat? You'll get meat. At Chodesh Yomim, you'll get meat for 1 month. So now, we're on the 22nd day of Iyar, and for 30 days they had meat, which takes us now to the 22nd day of Sivan. Because 20 was the first day they left, 20, 21, and 22. Yeah, they left on the 20th day is when they left. No, everybody lives just constant to 20, 21, 22, and then where there's a discrepancy is with the Chodesh Yom mean 30 days, or does Chodesh Yom mean 29 days? Rashi learns at Chodesh Yom means 29 days, which takes you the Avalu Eser the train B'Sivan, that would take you to the 21st day of Sivan, because the month of Iyar is a chaser, the month of Sivan is a moled. So therefore, since the month of Iyar is a chaser, it's only 29 days. So from day 22 to day 29 is 7 days, right? And then you need another 22 days to make up the 29 days of the month. Rashi we're talking about a month of 29 days. Told you we're talking about it for 30 days, so the days are off by 1. Anyway, so now we're on the 22nd day of Sivan. And then more trouble started. That was the day that Miriam talked about the Isha Hakushis, the black woman that Moshe Rabbeinu married. Uchsiv, and because of that, she got saras and she was locked up for 7 days. But Isagar Miriam Shivas Yamim. So day 22 of Sivan, you count 7 days. Now you're on day 29 of Sivan. Tahavalu Esron V'Tisha B'Sivan. Now you're on day 29 of Sivan. Uchsiv, it says, on that day, on the 29th day of Sivan, which would be the second to the last day of Sivan, because Sivan has 30 days. On the 29th day of Sivan was the day that they dispatched the Meraglim. And we know the Meraglim were away for 40 days, right? We know the Meraglim were away for 40 days. Utanya, we learned, the Esram V'Tisha B'Sivan Sholach Moshe Meraglim. Moshe dispatched the Meraglim on the 29th day of Sivan. And they came back 40 days later. So let's count. If they left on day 29 of Sivan, then you have day 30 of Sivan. So there's 2 days in Sivan. Tammuz is 29 days. So 29 days of Tammuz plus the 2 days of Sivan is 31. And then you have 8 days of Av, brings you to 39, right? So the 39 was the day before Tisha B'Av, right? And that was the day they came back and they complained, and that night they cried. Break the Gemara, Arboim Yoim, Hani Arboim Yoim Nachi Chatav. It wasn't 40 days. 40 days would have been they arrived on Tisha B'Av. You want to say that they arrived the day before Tisha B'Av. Toshis Grada learns they arrived on Tisha B'Av. That's another difference between Toshis and Rashi. Rashi learns they arrived on the day before Tisha B'Av. So the Gemara, and the day before Tisha B'Av would only be 39 days. Amar Abaye Tammuz Lahi Shata. That year the Rebbeinu Shloim deviated the schedule and made the moon visible a day later. Miluya Maluya. It was 30 days. So now you have 2 days of Sivan, 29 and 30. You have 30 days of Tammuz. So we're at 32. And 32 plus 8 is 40. And on day 40, which was Erev Tisha B'Av, is when they came back. How do you know that Rebbeinu Shloim B'davka orchestrated it to make an extra day of Tammuz so that this crying event, which corresponded to the Churban Bayis, should be Tisha B'Av night? And the Gemara Psachim Darshins, Karalai Moed is referring to Rosh Chodesh, the Moed of Rosh Chodesh, and the Rebbeinu Shloim added to the month. He pushed off Rosh Chodesh Av by 1 day, so that the terrible devastation of the Meraglim will correspond with the terrible devastation of Tisha B'Av of the Churban Bayis. The only problem with this whole cheshbon is the very first 3 days. It says that they Yisru Mehar Hashem Derech Shloishes Yomim, and that was day 20, 21, and 22. The problem is the Lubavitch Rebbe always tells us that Rashi goes with traditional Mikra, and Rashi teaches the pasuk of Yisru Mehar Hashem Derech Shloishes Yomim means they traveled 1 day, but they had Kvitzis Derech as if they traveled for 3 days, and that's all Rashi says there on that pasuk, which is mind-boggling because Rashi just brings a medrash and doesn't even discuss the Pashat Pshat. No. Why doesn't it work? And our Gemara works perfectly. The Gemara just went through it. Yeah, usually when my kids drive, they seem to do the same. And they wonder why it takes me so long to get from Lakewood to Toronto. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says. So that's how you figured it out. So we're going to finish off now. The evening after they arrived, after the Meraglim arrived, which was according to Rashi, Erev Tisha B'Av, that evening, Tisha B'Av night, after Kinnis, they cried that night, complaining that, no, we're going to go into Eretz Yisrael, we're going to get slaughtered by the Nephilim, it's going to be a big problem. Amar B'Yechanan, Oysa Yoim, Erev Tisha B'Av, which is how Rashi's goes. Toshus actually means they arrived on Tisha B'Av. Amar l'Makadosh Baruch Hu, Atem b'chitzam b'chiyah shel chinam, you cried for nothing. V'ani kavei lechem b'chiyah l'doyrais, and because of that, the night of Tisha B'Av is going to be a night of crying l'doyrais. So there's a beautiful, beautiful marsha on this that I have to share because it mamish blew my mind open. So I want to get a chumash. I forgot to bring a chumash before. I'll just run and grab a chumash. No, let me just get a regular chumash. The main parsha of Meraglim, is in Shlach. But at the beginning of the Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu reviews the story of the Meraglim when he gives Klal Yisrael Musar. The Mashal says there's a lot of discrepancies between those two stories, and it uses our Gemara to explain those discrepancies. So it's very, very fascinating. So let me open up the Chumash, and we'll quickly go through it in the Chumash. It'll take 2 minutes, but it's mamish unbelievable. So it says over here, when the Meraglim first came back, the pasuk tells us, "Vayelchu vayavoyu el Moshe vel Aaron." They didn't just go to the tzibur; they first checked in at the oil moed with the authorities, with Moshe and Aaron, ve'al kol hadas b'nei Yisrael, and then the kol hadas b'nei Yisrael, a midbar part. So that's the first thing that it says in Shlach. If we go to the first parsha of Devarim, we're going to see that was related to the story has been related a little bit differently. So what does it say over here? It says they came back. Let me just focus on the words. It doesn't say that they went first to Moshe and Aaron. It just says they reported to everybody. So that's one discrepancy between the Parsha of Meraglim and Shlach and the Parsha of Meraglim and Devarim. Let's see the other discrepancies. Then it says, we came to Eretz Yisrael and they have beautiful pairs. But there's a problem. So the Meraglim explained why there's a problem. The problem is that we're not going to be able to win them over. They're too powerful. Amalek's there, Chiti and Murray. Okay. And then everybody joined in. Also, we can't do it, and that caused the trouble. If you look at what happened in Dvarim, it doesn't mention anything about it. Look what it says. It's incredible. It says, they brought it to us. And what did the Meraglim say? And then the next passage is, why not? There's no problem. They just reported everything's wonderful. It totally skips the bad part.
This is like CNN News.
That's right, it's like CNN. So it's unbelievable. It doesn't mention anything about it. Okay, next. Let's see what happens next. Then it says over there, there was a major public protest. But they all in the public square, this was a major protest. They doxed Moshe Rabbeinu, they went to his house outside. They were protesting outside his house. It's unbelievable. It's a public protest. If you go back to the Parsha in Devarim, it says V'teiragnu ba'aleichem. People privately in their own homes were complaining. But when they said, "B'sinas Hashem ha'isanu," since Hashem hates us, that's why Haitziyanim Mitzrayim lost his son to be Adam Lashmidei.
Can you not say that the reason for these discrepancies is when Moshe Rabbeinu reviewed it to the Kinderach of these?
Oh, you Gewaltig. Your mama hit the nail on the head. So, and the final kasha that the Mashal asks is, I don't understand. How could you run these kids? This story happened when they're about to go into Eretz Yisrael after all of the Chaitim, all of the Dorbim died already. So all these people that he's talking to are innocent. But he's talking about Tikra, Eli Kulchem. You guys came to complain. What do you mean you guys came to complain? You guys were under 20. You guys were not part of the Chaitim. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu attacking them? They were too young. They were not in the Gzeir of the Meraglim.
They're 60 years old.
They might be, but they weren't involved in the Meraglim, right? So Zoktim Ashah, and he ties it into our Gemara beautifully. You're right. Here he was not talking to the Meraglim. The regular Meraglim, that's what happened. The adults who fell for the Meraglim, the Meraglim came, they said there's a problem. And because there's a problem, because Efeski Azam, that's what we don't want, and they publicly protested. That was a public spectacle of the Meraglim that the Dor HaMidbar lost their schus to go into Yisrael. Zoktim Ashah, besides that, you know what happened? The little kinderlach that were at home, who weren't aware of all this, they just heard their parents crying to them and saying, Hashem hates us. Hashem's messing us up. They didn't get into the details. They just it was implanted into their minds by their parents that the Rebbeinu Hashem hates us. And the Rebbeinu Hashem is messing us up. So therefore, they never had the Dibas Ha'aretz. They never had the Dibas Ha'aretz that said that Efes Kiazaham. It was merely, it's a wonderful land, but V'layavisam Lalos, you didn't want to go because, but in your homes, it was pumped into you that Besinas Hashem Meisanu. You think Hashem loves you, but you were perverted, your mind was perverted to think that Hashem hates you. So you were convinced for no reason that Hashem hates you. Sinas Chinam. Zok the Mashal beautifully. Our Gemara, it tells over here that you cried a Bechia Shel Chinam, a Bechia of Chinam, saying that Hashem has a Sinas Chinam. Therefore, it makes sense that the Churban Beis HaMikdash that we're discussing here, Bani Kavelachem Bechila Doiros, that's not the Churban Beis Rishon. The Churban Beis Rishon wasn't a Bechila Doiros. It was maybe one generation. It was 70 years. The Bechila Doiros is the second Beis HaMikdash that was Chorv because of Sinas Chinam. So Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them, you better get rid of that Sinas Chinam, because if you don't get rid of that Sinas Chinam, you're going to end up losing the Beis HaMikdash. So that's how the Marsha brings it all together so beautifully. Gewaltig. Zogt the Heilige Gemara. Zogt the Heilige Gemara. Charav Abayis B'Rishayim. How do we know that the first Beis HaMikdash was Charav? The Chsiv B'Chodesh HaChamishi, which is of course Av. B'Shiva L'Chodesh, on the 7th day of Av. Hishnas Teisha Esrei Shana LaMelech Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. Ba Nebuzradan Rav Tabachim, the butcher Nebuzradan came. Eved Melech Bavel, Yerushalayim, he came to Yerushalayim by Yisrael as Beis Hashem. So it says that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed on the 7th day of Av. We're looking for Tisha B'Av, so we got a little bit of a problem. Now it says that it happened on the 10th day of Av. It couldn't have happened on the 7th day of Av. You can't say that this occurred on the 10th day of Av. I'm sorry? No, this was a long event. It wasn't a blitzkrieg. This was a drawn-out, tragic situation here. They breached the Heichal on the 7th day of Av. They partied inside. They did they did Misazachem in the Heichal. So the desecration of the Heichal started on the 7th day. On the 7th and 8th day, they did terrible things there. They were Makalkal the Heichal. Then the 9th day, towards the evening, they lit the Heichal on fire. And it burned through the night, Motzai Tisha B'Av, all the way through the 10th day of Av. So it was a 4-day event, but the fire started in the afternoon of Tisha B'Av. Shenemar, how do we know this happened in the afternoon? Shenemar, Oy Lanu Kipana Hayoim, woe is to us, the day is coming to an end. So this is when the horrible tragedy, the fire started. Kinatu Tole Erev. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan said. Since the Beis HaMikdash, most of it was burnt actually on the 10th day, that's what Rabbi Yochanan said, Ilmole, Hayisi Sham, if I was over there, if I was there, if I was in that generation, Loikavativ Elabasiri, I would have only made Tisha B'Av on the 10th day, if Nesheruba Shal Heichal Boy Nisraf, because Roiv of the Heichal got burnt on the 10th day. So my question was, if he would have made Tisha B'Av on the 10th day of Av, would have it still been called Tisha B'Av? Because if it wasn't, it would lose its whole flavor. But that's the shayla. I hear. V'Rabbanan, why did the Rabbanan make it on the 9th day? Aschalta de Paranisa Adifa. It's the fire started Tisha B'Av afternoon, and that's where it is. The problem that we have here is Rabbi Yochanan said earlier that Oysa Hayom Erev Tisha B'Av Haya. Rabbi Yochanan said that the night of Tisha B'Av is when they cried, and that was where Hashem said it'll be Bechila Doros. So how could you, Rabbi Yochanan, come along and say that it should be on the 10th day? You just told us earlier that it should be the night. It should be the night of the Bechila Doros, right? No, so the Marsha asked the kasha. The Marsha says, Loi Toisvis, it's perfect. Because Toisvis learned that the Meraglim came on the 10th day. Toisvis learned the Meraglim came on the 9th day. Right, 9th day, and they cried the night, exactly. They cried the night of the 9th. So according to Toisvis, this fits in a little bit more geschmack, but it's a little bit schwer in Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that the Bechila Doros was Tisha B'Av by night. How would he have pushed it off to the 10th day? There it is. It would have been the 10th day, but he would have still called it Tisha B'Av. That's. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So that's how Tosfos said it. Zok the Gemara, Zok the Hela Gemara ubishniya minol. How do you know that the second base of Mikdash was also Chorev on Tisha B'av? So the word the Tanya we learned Megavel Schus Liam Zakai the Choiva Liam Chayiv. Usually bad things happen on bad days and good things happen on good days. So it's logical to say that if the first base of Mikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'av, so too the second base of Mikdash. Yeah, Gevaltic. That's what the Gemara says. Amru, we said, Kishachar Beis Hamikdash Barishayna, by the first Chor Beis Hamikdash, Oisa Yoim Erev Tisha B'Av Haya. So let's look at the Girsa here. Oisa Yoim, where's my Dalet? Where is my Dalet? My Dalet's up here. Oisa Yoim, so Kishachar Beis Hamikdash Barishayna, Oisa Yoim Tisha B'Av Haya. It was Tisha B'Av, and it was Umotzoi Shabbos Haya. It was Motzoi Shabbos, so the first Tisha B'Av was on the Motzoi Shabbos. Umotzoi Shvi Soisa. It was the year after a Shemitah year, and the Mishmarta Shal Yehayariv Hoisa. It was the Mishmar of the very first Mishmar, who was Yehayariv. We learned he was the first Mishmar. The Levim Hayu Shira, and the Levim were saying Shira at the time on this Motzoi Shabbos. But Aimdim Duchanim, they were on their platform. Umashira Hayu they were actually saying the Yoim of Wednesday. It says Vayoshav Aleim Asainim. Hashem punishes the wickedness of the Rishoyim, of the Goyim, Uberosam, and with their wickedness, Yatzmisem, he'll crush them. And the pasuk ends off, they couldn't finish the pasuk, which is the second time in the pasuk where it talks about Hashem crushing the enemies, the Goyim. They couldn't finish the pasuk because they were stopped in mid pasuk at Shabo Nochrim the Chivshon until the Goyim came and stopped them. So Rashi and Tosfos both asked, what are they doing saying the Wednesday Yom? It's Motzei Shabbos. So Rashi says one shot is that they were bakluging zich. They weren't saying the Shira. They were in a very bad matter. So they said something that's like a kinna. And Tosfos says that shot, but he says the second shot is that could be Hashem made it, that they made a mistake because this was a propos. You know what this is relevant to, and I'm going to share with you something that's not. We all heard it before, and it's unsettling, but it reminds me of what we just learned over here. Remember the famous story where they asked them, "What's the difference between Avinu Malkeinu, Asay Laman, you're right, Asay Laman Yichudecha, Asay Laman Harugim Al Yichudecha, Asay Laman Harugim Al Shem Kodecha, Asay Laman Tevuchim Al Yichudecha." What does that mean? So a Holocaust survivor said, when they would line us up to gun us down, so they would start from one end and gun us through the other end. And as they were gunning us down, we all were saying, Shema Yisrael Hashem Echad, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So Asay Leman, Harugim Al Shem Kodecha, do on behalf of the people who got shot at the beginning of the row, when they were saying Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, and then Asay Leman, Harugim Tevuchim Al Yichudecha, Asay Leman, the people who were on the other end of the aisle, so the machine gun didn't get to them until they got to Hashem Echad. That's what a Holocaust survivor said over it. It's a chilling thought, but it's very appropriate to what happened over here. They were in the middle of saying the Shira, and they were gunned down in mid-sentence. And so too during the second Beis Hamikdash.
So too with all the details, like the actual.
No, I think it just means, and so too the Beis Hamikdash Sheni was Chorev as well on Tisha B'Av. Oh, did all those things? Did all those dates line up? I'm not sure.
And yeah, there's no other historical writings that it has.
It's
just writes the Megal. It's just Megal, but the Gemara just says Megal.
yeah, that's what the Gemara says.
Josephus, I remember reading, expresses amazement that it happened on the same day. You can't believe it.
Well, many other horrible things happened on that day as well.
Mark your calendar when we get to Arachim, Yud Dalet and Yud Beis. It'll explain what it means.
What means?
What it means that it was the same in the second Beis Hamikdash.
Okay, thank you. Zog the Hela Gemara weiter. Nilka the Beitar. Beitar was destroyed. Gemara, that we know from Kabbalah. We know that that's when it happened. Nechra Sha'ir, the city of Yerushalayim was plied over, which basically is the final step in total destruction. Tanya Kishacharv, Turnus Rupa Sarasha Esahechal. when Taanis Rupus, the Russia, destroyed the Heichal, Nigzer Gzeira Rabbi Gamliel Hariga. At that day, they also decided that they were going to murder Rabbi Gamliel. But in the group of ministers that came to that verdict, there was one guy where, from our perspective, he was a hero. From their perspective, he was a traitor. One of the great ministers came to the Beis Medrash. The guy with the nose is being looked for. The nose is the most important. All of Klal Yisrael is nimshal to one guf, because we all stick together. The nose is the most important part of the guf. That's where we breathe from. That sustains us. So when you're referring to the Gadol Hador, you refer to him as the Bal HaChotim, because it's the most important part of the body. That's why Jews have long noses, because the Chotim is the most important part of the body. So the Bal HaChotim is Bakish, Bal HaChotim is Bakish. So Rabbi Gamliel knew that he got the hint, because he was trying to tip off Rabbi Gamliel. He was trying to help Rabbi Gamliel. Shamar Rabbi Gamliel, Ozal Tashaminayu, he went and hid from them. Once he was in a hidden place, this minister was able to speak to him where he wouldn't be spotted. Ozal Lagabei B'tzina, he went to them in privacy. And the minister told Gamliel, if I save your life, are you going to bring me to Olam Haba? Amalein, you got a deal. Amalei, the minister says, I don't trust you, Jew. Istabili, swear to me that you're going to get me into Olam Haba if I save your life. Istabili, he swore. The moment that happened, Salak le'igra, this minister climbed up to a high spot. Nofel, he jumped up and committed suicide. Umis, and he died. Ugamiri, and we know amongst the goyim, the chigazuk zerasa, whenever a group gets together to make a gzer against Klal Yisrael, and one of the people involved dies, mivatel gzerasayu, they would always be mivatel gzer because it was a sign to them from heaven that this was not a good idea. So therefore, they aborted the murder of Gamliel.
That's a smart guy.
Yadz the Basko, the Amra, Adoin Zeh, doesn't even have his name. Adon Zeh, this fellow, Mizumin Lechaye Ha'olam Haba, because of that promise. No, he was a minister. He was one of the people in the meeting to decide to condemn Rabbi Gamliel.
He's part of the Senate, the Roman Senate.
Right. Well, are these Greeks or these Romans? Because Taanis Rupus is a Greek name.
The Romans.
Oh, they're Romans? Okay.
The Romans took many philosophy
Uh-huh.
an extension.
I thought Taanis Rupus was one of the Flintstones, but okay. Okay. So Zok the Heilige Gemara Vayter. Zok the Heilige Gemara Vayter. Taner Rabbanim. Someone told me that he was once speaking to an Apikoros, and Apikoros was so proud. He says, "I did every Aveira in the book, and I'm proud of it." So my friend told him, "No, you missed one Aveira. Commit suicide, and then you'll be perfect."
They came to Mendelssohn, they were talking to Mendelssohn, the guy was Mendelssohn from 1789.
Yeah. The head of the reform of it.
Right. So the guy was bragging to him that he's switching up the clavers. So then they asked him, "You don't keep Shabbos?" He says, "No." "You don't put on spirit?" He goes, "No." He's all proud. Mendelssohn says, "You're not lucky clavers, you're a guy."
Taner Rabbanim. Mishacharev Abayis Barishayna, when the first Beis Hamikdash was Charev, also a tragic story. The Skapsu Kitas Shal Perchet Kahuna, groups of Perchet Kahuna got together. Umaftechas HaHechel B'Yadin, they had the keys to the Heichel in their hands. V'olu L'Gag HaHechel, they climbed up to the roof of the Heichel. V'amu L'fanav, Rebbeinu Shalaylam, Hoyav Lo Zechinu Lias Gizbaran Emunim, since we weren't Zeicha to be trustworthy protectors of your Heilige Beis Hamikdash, Yiyu Maftechas Mesuras Lach. We're giving you the keys back. The Zorgim Klape Mal, they threw him up. The Yotzah came pieces yad. A hand came out, similar to the hand that dropped Reb Chanina Medois's wife, that table leg. They kibbalt the man and caught the keys. And then they kavtu v'naflu l'toich ha'or. They committed suicide. They jumped into the fire. Yeshayo, and of this group of Kaihanim, Yeshayo Hanavi Tzach Baklot, he mourned. Masa Gei Chazayai, the beautiful metropolis of Yerushalayim. Malach Ephai, what's happening to you? Ki Alisa Kulach Lagago. He said, everybody ran up to the rooftops. Normally, when do you run up to the rooftops? When you're under attack from the enemy. But when you're under attack from the enemy, the dead people that we're going to find will be people with battle wounds, people who were killed by knives, by swords, by spears, by arrows. Shuais Milea, a beautiful bustling city. Ir Haimia, Kirya Aliza, a beautiful bustling city where there's plenty of food and plenty of drink and plenty of provisions to live. Yet, all the corpses, the victims of this horrible situation, they did not die with battle wounds. They died of hunger, they died of suicide, and that's what Yosy was being kind, how many people died, not even in the battle, they died from hunger, and in this case from jumping off into the fire. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nemar, it says about HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, Mekar Kir, Yeshua Elahar. So Pashup shot of the pasuk is they broke up the city. But Rashi teaches Mekar Kir that the Rebbe Shalom is also Baklad Mizeh. Lashon Yolola, crying. Kir V'Shua, Mekonin V'Zoyek, crying and screaming. Your Rebbe Shalom's crying as well about the tragedy that's occurring. Zok Tehele Gemara. This is a Geshmak Gemara for a Litvak. It says, Mishanichnas Av Mamaitin B'Simcha. You have to balance it out. You can't be all about atzvus. If you want to be a major litvak in Av and be all depressed, you have to counteract that with an abundance of simcha in Chodesh Adar. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rapapa. Rapapa said, Hilchach, therefore, and the summer portion we say, like Tosfos, the Hilchach is going back on what we said earlier. How do you know that the Churban Bayis Sheni was on Tisha B'Av? Because it's a bad day, and usually bad things occur on bad days. So based on that, if you don't want any more bad things to happen in Av, by Yisrael, the Isle Dina Ba'ad Nochri, if you have a court case with a Nochri, you have a speeding ticket trial that's scheduled. If it's an Av, Lishtamit Minei B'Av, push it off. Terei Mazle. If you don't have good mazel, it's not a good time to deal with goyim. Better, you should reschedule it for limsa nafshe Adar. You should push it off to Adar, to bori mazle, because then you'll have better mazel. So now we're dashing another pasuk, not directly about what we're talking about, but I believe we were talking about Rabbi Yehuda Bered of Shmuel. So now we're going to dash another pasuk that Rabbi Yehuda Bered of Shmuel commented on. It says, Losais lachem achros v'tikva. Even in Golus, Hashem wanted to give us some type of hope. Am Rabbi Yehuda of Shmuel v'Shilas Mishmei Rav Elu dekalim u'chleipishan. These are the palm trees, the date palm trees, and the kleipishan that were plentiful in Bavel. We learned about Rava. He came to Bavel and he saw that there's so many dates there and they were cheap. And he first wondered, why is it that everyone's not sitting and learning if the cost of living is so low? And after he ate the dates and he had diarrhea, he says, I'm surprised they can sit and learn, even though they have all these stomach issues. But you see that there was an abundance of food and klei pishta. Now it's dashing another pasuk, and this is when Yitzchak commented on Yaakov's begadim. Re'ei reich b'ni kareich sada asher baruch Hashem. Again, Amar Rabbi Yehuda of Shmuel. So we're just talking about different drushes of Rabbi Yehuda of Shmuel, Bashilas, which made the Rab. Kareich sada shel tapuchim, like the smell of a field of apples. And Rashi and Tosfos both say it doesn't mean apples; it means esrogim. The kishmak aroma of esrogim is what Yitzchak Avinu smelled on Yaakov. Zok Tehele Gemara. Yudiyah, come help me over here. Show everybody what you got. Shabbos Shechol Tisha B'Av Liyos B'Soicha Asurin L'Chsaper L'Chabes. Rashi and Tosfos both say it. So Rashi says it. Rashi says it by. It's not Rashi. Oh, so maybe it's just Tosfos. I'm sorry. I thought I saw it in Rashi, but I guess I didn't. No, I don't see it either. So I must be wrong. It's pretty simple. It's either there or it's not. It's not. Oh, you know something? Could be I saw it in the Lakute Rashi. I could have seen it, but I don't see it here either. I thought I saw it. Okay. So at least I didn't make it up. At least I should say. Kizok the Heilige Gemara Vayt. Shabbos Shechol Tisha B'Av Liyos B'Soicha Asurin L'Saper L'Chabes Shvu Shechal Boy. You're not allowed to take haircuts. You're not allowed to wash your clothes. Amar Nachman Lo Shonu Elo L'Chabes V'Lo Dosh. That you're not allowed to wash. That means if you're planning to wear fresh clothing on Tisha on the 9 days. Aval L'Chabes L'Aniach. But if you're just washing it to use for after Tisha B'Av, mutter, it would be mutter. Rav Sheshes Amar. I'm sorry. Rav Sheshes Amar. Afilu L'Chabes U'Laniach. Even if you're just washing it to put it aside, also it's still be also you're not allowed to do laundry on the 9 days. Reb Sheshes, Teda, you should know that this is true. The Batli Katsri Devei Rav. Rav gives his washing people, the people who work in his laundry room, he gave them off that week because they couldn't even wash clothing for the next week. Yeah, otherwise, why would he give them off? They can still do laundry. Mosiv Rav Huna Rakash. It says B'chamishi Mutar Mechpoid Shabbos. Our Mishnah says on Thursday washing was allowed because of Kavod Shabbos. So let's analyze this. Lamai, what was allowed on Thursday because of Kavod Shabbos? If you're talking about to actually wash clothing and actually wear them, Mike Kavod Shabbos Ika. What type of Kavod Shabbos is there by wearing fresh clothing on Thursday? Doesn't make sense. Elo, what it must mean that b'chamishi mutar laniach, you're allowed to wash clothing on Thursday to save for Shabbos. Elo laniach. But you see from the Mishnah, b'chamishi udeshari. It's only on Thursday where you're allowed to wash clothing now for later. Aval haShabbos kula, any other day in the week, also you wouldn't be allowed to wash clothing for later. So Rab Nachman said you're allowed to wash clothing to use for after Tisha B'av. Yet you see from our Mishnah that you're not allowed to wash clothing to wear for after Tisha B'av. You're only allowed to wash clothing to wear for Shabbos. So Gemara, no, we're talking about on Thursday, you're allowed to wash and wear it. The Gemara asked, how is it covered Shabbos to wash clothing on Thursday and wear them on Thursday? So Gemara, it's speaking where someone only had one set of clothing. So he can't wash them on Friday, it's too close to Shabbos, it's too rushed. So therefore, he can wash it on Thursday and wear it on Thursday because of covered Shabbos, because he has to wash it. He doesn't have to be naked until Shabbos. Once you wash it, he can wear it today. So you don't have a rye from here. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you don't have a rye from here that you cannot wash for tomorrow.
What about his underwear? But he wears on for 3 days.
And then maybe he washes that too. Yeah. You find this heter to wash times to wash when you're normally not supposed to if you only have one set of clothing. You're allowed to wash it out on Chayil Shemoyed. Itmar Nami, we had another member that says similar to Rab Nachman. Amar Binyamin, Amar Belazar, Loishanu El Chabis Velil Boish, Avaloniach Mutter. So Rabbi Binyamin says the same thing that we quoted from Rab Nachman earlier. And Meisvei, now the Gemara asks the Kasha Rab Nachman, which the Gemara cannot deflect, which is going to slug him up. It says Nebraisa Asur Lachabes Lefnei Tisha B'av. You're not allowed to wash before Tisha B'av. Afilu La'aniach La'achar Tisha B'av. That's as black and white as can be. So this is going to slug up Rab Nachman. Now, the washing that we're talking about is gihuts. They pressed it beautifully and it was crisp, bright white, which is how they prepared their laundry in Eretz Yisrael.
When the Gemara says Meisvei, like Rob can't say, like, where'd you get this from? It doesn't say Tanya.
It's a brisa. We assume it's a brisa.
Doesn't say it.
Yeah, it doesn't say, but it is a brisa. So V'giyut Shalanu in Bavel, they also like to press it, but it never came out sharp white. You know why? Because the water was dirty in Bavel. In Eretz Yisrael, with the water from the mountains, it came from fresh rainwater, so it was very nice, clean water. So their clothing came out bright white. But in Bavel, it came from the mud. There in the lowlands, the water was always dirty, so it never made it perfectly white. So V'giyut Shalanu, our highest level of washing is Kikibo Shalahen. It's only like Kibo Shalahen, which might not be usher. Which might not be usher.
You would say translate as washing or
It's pressing, but it makes it very white. Let's see Rashi. V'giyut Shalanu. Eina Yafa, our giyut is only as good as Kibo Shalahen. And Rashi also legayet lefnei Tisha B'av. You're not allowed to do the washing that we're talking about is the washing that makes it crisp and white. Even if you can do it for after Tisha B'av. Our washing, which is shvacham would be mutter. Giyut means pressing it, but it makes it very, very white, and the quality of the water has an impact on that. Okay, uchlei pishton. When it comes to klei pishton, ein bahem mishum giyut. Rashi says ein ben le'asher. There's no reason to asher them mishum giyut. Ela b'chli melas. I guess pishton clothing cannot be whitened so much. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'll call upon them to yufta. The earlier part of the brayso says very clearly that you're not allowed to wash on the 9 days, even for afterwards. So Rab Nachman is August. And in fact, we don't do laundry. If anybody ever worked in camp, once a Tisha B'av, the whole camp has to do laundry. Okay, Zok to Gemara. I remember because I did it one year. Remember that?
He's bowling all night.
It was geschmack. And me and Mata, we went the whole night. We were at Hadavim. Zok the Gemara. Shalach Rabbi Yitzchak bar Giyurei mishmei de Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Giyurei sent in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shalom Klei Pishon ein b'Hashem mishum giyutz ein b'hen mishum giyutz. Even though we said Klei Pishon doesn't have giyutz, nevertheless, aval also the loivshon b'Shabbos shechol Tisha B'av liyos b'Seicha. You're not allowed to wear fresh pishon on Shavuot shechol. Omar Rav said, Lo shanu ela lefanav. This that we say Shavuot shechol boy, that's only before Tisha B'av. So if Tisha B'av is on a Wednesday, up until Wednesday you can't wear it. But Thursday and Friday, it's already after Tisha B'av. Erev Shabbos Nachmu. Then Avad you're allowed to wear it. Well, Achrav Mutter. But don't get so excited. The Shmuel Amar Afidu LaAchrav Nami Osir. Shmuel held Shavuot shechol boy is Osir even afterwards. So instead of the Chetzois, the next day in camp, they start playing music and everyone's excited. No. They have to wait till after Shabbos. Could you imagine? Meisvei, the Gemara asks the Kasha. Shabbos shechal Tisha B'av liyos b'Seicha. Osir l'sapu l'chabes. Uvechamishi, but on Thursday, mutar mipnei chavar Shabbos. Ketzad. Kol liyos b'echad b'Shabbos. If Tisha B'av was on a Sunday, mutar l'chabes kol Shabbos kula. Because the whole week is after Tisha B'av. B'sheni b'shlishi b'revi uvechamishi. If Tisha B'av fell out any one of the middle days, l'fanav Osir. Before Tisha B'av it'll be Osir. L'achrav mutar. But after Tisha B'av, even if it's in the week of Tisha B'av, it's going to be mutar like we do. Chol liyos b'erev Shabbos. But if Tisha B'av fell on a Friday, then mutar l'chabes b'chamishi, you're even allowed to do laundry erev Tisha B'av mekoyed Shabbos. But like kibbutz b'chamishi, if you didn't do your laundry on erev Tisha B'av on Thursday, b'chamishi b'Shabbos, mutar l'chabes b'erev Shabbos, you're even allowed to wash clothing on Tisha B'av on erev Shabbos in the mincha l'mayla. But light Allah Abaye, b'tem Rabbi Yaakov, aha. But Abaye and Rabbi Yaakov cursed someone who would do that. You shouldn't be washing clothing on Tisha B'av. Zok the Brayse weiter. Chol yosh b'sheni u'b'chamishi. Now we've already learned enough to slug up Shmuel because the Brayse makes it very clear that after Tisha B'av, even in that week, you're allowed to wash. And Shmuel said you can't the whole week. So that's going to be a kash on Shmuel. But we're still in the middle of a Brayse, so we're going to continue learning more things. Chol yosh b'sheni u'b'chamishi. If Tisha B'av falls out on a Monday or a Thursday, or anywhere you lane normally 3 aliyahs, Karin Shloisha, you'll read 3 aliyahs, umafter echad, and one of the 3 aliyahs, the last one, will be mafter. What if Tisha B'av fell out for Shlishi Revi, a day where there's no normally Kriyas HaTorah? Then Karin Echad, there's only one aliyah on Tisha B'av, umafter echad, and that aliyah is also mafter. Yosy Omer, la'olim Karin Shloisha umafter echad. No matter when Tisha B'av falls out, you'll lane 3 aliyahs, and one of them will be mafter, which is what we do. But I'll call upon them, Tiyov to the Shmuel, you have arrived from this Brayse that after Tisha B'av, there are no more restrictions. It's actually a machloikis tanoim if the restrictions of Tisha B'av extend past Tisha B'av in that week. The Tanya we learned the 3-way machloikis. Tisha B'av shechal yos b'Shabbos, v'chein erev Tisha B'av shechal yos b'Shabbos, oichel v'shoysa kol tzarcha, you can eat whatever you want. Umayla al shulchanoi afilu kesuda shloimei melech b'shaitai, even like the Suda of Shlomo Melech while he was king, because there were times in his life where he wasn't king. But also l'sapu l'chabes, and you're not on. Here's the important part: you're not allowed to take haircuts or wash. Meir shchodesh for a Taanis divrei Meir, from a shchodesh until the Taanis. Divrei Meir, which is how we pass. That's 9 days. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kol hachodesh kol yosher. The entire month of Av, it's also to wash or to take haircuts. Rabbi Shimon Omer, I'm sorry.
Where's the heter or the starting in Shavuot?
Well, let's look. Rabbi Shimon Omer in the Osir la'oisa Shabbos bilvad. Rabbi Shimon says it's only that Shabbos that week itself, but before and after. That's one brayso. The Tanya Idach v'noyag Evel Merish Chodesh v'Taanis. You're noyag Avelos from Rosh Chodesh until Taanis. Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kol hachodesh kol yoser. Rabbi Shimon Omer in the Osir la'oisa Shabbos bilvad. So you see clearly Shmuel has support because there's 2 Tanoim who hold that the Isurim of Tisha B'av, at least the washing and the taking haircuts, continue the entire week even after Tisha B'av.
You don't have that right. You just said that Shabbos, that is a Shabbos.
Well, it should be the whole week, from beginning to end, even after Tisha B'av.
Our whole discussion was started with the same. Our own mission says Shabbos Shachal, Shabbos Shachal, that's our mission.
And Shmuel understands that it's meaning the whole week.
Yeah, but there's the same lotion that they have in this price.
I hear, but here you can juxtapose them to Reb Meir. Reb Meir said out of Taanis, and on that Reb Yehuda said Kol HaChodesh Kula or Kol HaShabbos Kula. So once they're arguing with Reb Meir,
So are you talking that Yehuda means The entire month of Av?
Yeah. You know, so
Well, it has to be, right?
we have to be happy we don't pass them like it. That's right.
Otherwise,
Right.
okay.
So Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ushlosh on Mikveh Echad Orshu. All these three different shitas, whether it's just up until Tisha B'Av, whether it's the whole week or the whole month, they all learn it from the same pasuk, but different words in the pasuk. Dichsev Ishpati Kol Masoisa. I'm going to eliminate all of the happiness. Chaga, the Chag, Chodsha, the month, the Shabbat of the week, the Chol Mayada, and all the Yom Tov. Zok to Gemara. Man Damer Merish Chadish Vada Taanis. Reb Meir, who says it's from Merish Chadish until the Taanis, he focuses on the word Mechaga, from the Chag, from the word Chag, which is Rish Chodesh. Umanda Omar Kol HaChodesh Kulai. And Rabbi Yehuda, who said it's the whole month, also all these restrictions apply, is Mechacha. He focuses on the word Chocha in the pasuk. Umanda Omar Kol HaShabbos Kula. And Rabbi Yosy, I think, who said it's the whole week, also is Mishabata. He learns it from that word. Omar Rava says, and this is going to make us a little easier for us, Halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel, who says it's the whole week. L'Amarocha Halacha Reb Meir, who holds it's only until Tisha B'Av. How could Halacha be like both of them? V'tavaya l'kula. We're taking the kula of both of them. Utricha. The Iyashmin and Halacha Reb Meir, if it would have only said Halacha Reb Meir, Havamin Afilu Meir Chodesh, because Reb Meir says it's from Rosh Chodesh until Tisha B'Av. So we take the part of Reb Meir that says that everything ends at Tisha B'Av. But we don't take the part that he says that it starts from Rosh Chodesh. So if it's at Halacha Reb Meir, I would have thought, yeah, it ends at Tisha B'Av, but it starts on Rosh Chodesh. Kamash from Halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel, who says it's only that week. So we have Reb Shimon who says it only starts that week, and we have Reb Meir who says it ends by Tisha B'Av, which is what we do, which is what the Sfaradim do. Shvush Cholbai. V'yashmin Halacha Reb Shimon Gamliel, Havamin Afilu Achra. The whole week, even after Tisha B'Av, Kamash from Halacha Reb Meir. So we pass in Kavaya L'Kula, which means it starts Rosh Chodesh. I'm sorry, it starts Shavuot Chalboy and then ends Tisha B'Av. And that's what Sfaradim do. We pass completely like Reb Meir, I think, because we start Rosh Chodesh and it goes until Tisha B'Av. And with that, we can stop here. Oh, actually, we should really, yeah, we'll stop here. We're at 2 dots over here, right? So we'll stop here at 2. The mission will be Mamshech tomorrow. Maybe we'll finish the parak tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. And we'll finish it early, or maybe we'll save it for Monday so that we can make a Sima Monday and we could save the Tachanim. We'll become heroes. Become heroes upstairs.
Yeah.
Then even the
That's
Vasikim fight for us.
Yosy, Monday is much better than Shabbos.
Okay, so we'll wait for Monday.
The last time you did it at Shalosh Shabbos.
Yeah, yes, we'll try to do Monday. Okay, Gewaltig. Have a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful.
The shepherd do the same thing. He also manipulated the moon and the month and all of that.
All right.